because when I get a client in whose shoulder hurts, neck hurts, back hurts, we have to actually walk them back to that place of neutrality. So there wasn't kind of, let's work on tone or let's build strength anywhere until we could get rid of that pain.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Carpe Diem Living, the podcast. I am your host, Shane Gitman, and today we have someone here that, for once, I've never even heard of like any of the things she's talking about. What I'm so excited about, though, that's what makes it so exciting, is because when it's something new, of course, you just have so many questions. So without further ado, here's Miss Janis, and she's here to tell us about her specialty, her expertise in the holistic world. So take it away.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. So I am a movement specialist, which is, as you already identified, not a title and not a job that we hear very often. So we're all familiar with fitness instructors, and that is going to deal with a more traditional kind of fitness. And we're also familiar with physiotherapists and kinesiologists, practitioners like that. I am not either one of those, but I sit kind of in the Venn diagram in between. So what I really specialize in is working with people who have pain and injury in the body. And when I'm talking about pain, just to clarify, it is typically sore back, sore neck, sore shoulders, sore hips, sore knees, things like that, that have generally been caused by a non-impact injury. So it is those aging related, and I put that in quotation marks, aches and pains. And it is a lot of people that are coming in who have desk jobs that are just feeling like their back hurts and they can't quite figure out what to do about it. So I usually get people who have already done a bit of a circle. They've gone to the chiropractor, they've gone to the acupuncturist, they've gone to the massage therapist, they've gone to at least one or two of some other kind of practitioner. And that is exactly what I love, because I'm getting people that are now open to a more holistic way of looking at their body and exploring movement in their body. So what we do together is look at how they move and get rid of things that are too tight, and then build strength in areas where they are too weak, basically.
Wow. And I feel like this happens to a lot of us in the holistic, areas, that we try so many different things. And if we're not quite getting the results we're looking for, we're just like, okay, what's next? What can I try? And I love that you mentioned, people with like desk jobs, because I, for one, I've been working remote for 8 years. And so even though I'm not doing anything super wild when it comes to movement, I do have back pain. I do have like the upper back, the lower back, and I know it's because I'm either sitting too long or I'm not using the right chair. I'm not positioning myself correctly at the desk. There's so many things. So no, I think this is very important, especially right now. Everyone's working remote. Oh my gosh, like even people that never thought they'd have to work remote and they are now, I'm sure they're like, man, they're going to be feeling all different types of pains they never thought because of the new way that we work.
It's very true. And right, the ergonomic specialist from the office is not typically doing home calls. And so I know I have a number of people that reached out to me because they are now sitting at literal kitchen tables and couches doing work. And so that doesn't help anything. But one of the things that actually does impact us is how much we sit. Mm-hmm. And I think that a lot of age-related aches and pains are actually basically biomechanic overuse syndrome, because we just do the same thing day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out, and year over year. And so we get to, there's no magic age, but we get to 35, we get to 40, and then just the years of accumulation of those impacts, forces of gravity and, sitting in that hunched position kind of catch up with us.
Oh my gosh. And I saw in your, and something that you sent me where it shows that you work with type A personalities. So,
I can.
Yes. So why specifically type A? I have to ask.
Well, because first of all, I am. And second, because a lot of the techniques that I use really actually catch people off guard because I use, for example, one of the techniques that I use is Yamana body rolling. So it is based on a series of balls, and we lay on the floor and position the ball at a joint, and then we move the ball to the next joint. So generally speaking, if we were to get a visual on that, we would think, oh, that looks so relaxing. That looks nice and calm. If you actually do it, there is a lot of sensation. It can border towards pain, although I prefer the word intensity. And so it's everything that I am doing is really geared towards therapeutic results. And it's, I mean, I use the word therapeutic, but there's also a fitness component of it as well. But it's geared towards results. And to get results, we have to experience sensation. So I learned to use that word because I would get different personality types who just simply weren't prepared to feel that volume of sensation. So they're actually better suited to a more standard, let's say, restorative yoga practice or something like that. And just to, I am also certified in yoga. So that was not a slag against yoga, but it's the preparation that we are going to have a sensation. And the second reason is because typically that more type A type person is very motivated to change, because I will get clients in who just hit a wall where they say, this is clearly pre-COVID, but I'm embarrassed getting off airplanes in front of my colleagues because I stand up and this back pain or this knee pain or this shoulder pain is now actually setting me back professionally. I get people who have passions that they want to explore in life. It's everything from cycling to gardening, and they're just so keen to do that, but that pain is holding them back. So it's really all about, it's actually not as much linked to personality type as it is to, you have to want to do something with your body in life to actually get rid of that pain and to be motivated to take that action. So it's not typically people that just want to be fit for fitness sake. Those folks are already at the gym. Those plans are already working. We're good to go. Yeah. It's the folks who just find that they've hit that wall where either personally or professionally or with a hobby, that they're now, the pain and those aches and that creaky, saggy stuff is actually an impediment.
Got it. Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And for me, so I hear a lot about, rolling your back. And there was a thing I used to use. I haven't used in a while, but it came from a runner store, and it's like a roller you can use on your legs.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Do you recommend those? Because that does have a pain to it, but you call it sensation. Is that like a similar thing that you would use in this type of work?
Well, that's a good question. So there are a lot of tools out there in the world. And to be quite honest, I'm not trained in how to use all of those tools. Generally speaking, though, every tool is matched with a technique. So even Yamana body rolling, which I alluded to earlier, it uses a specific ball, but it also uses a really specific technique. Mm-hmm. And so generally speaking, it's that combination that has the power. It's not the tool. So a lot of people will go out and stock up on something that they saw in an infomercial, mm-hmm. but not actually have a clue how to use it. They're not working with an instructor. They're not getting proper education. Mm-hmm. And so they use the tool and hope that the tool just sort of fixes the problem. Right. It rarely does, because it's generally, a ball without the educated instructor to teach you how to implement it is just right. a ball that you could get from, the hardware store. Yeah. So it's generally, the tools are often designed by somebody who has a knowledge and a specialty on how to use it, and that's the magic. So the answer is not no. I think there's a lot of great tools out there that I don't use or that I don't teach with. Some of them I'm not aware of, some of them I am, and I just find the ones that I feel are more powerful. But other ones, they could be totally valid and amazing. It's just, the world is large and filled with a lot of different techniques these days.
And that's why we are doing this, because more
Yeah.
people can find, there's so much information to be shared and so many different things that may or may not work for this person or that person. So, okay. So I'm wondering, so when you got into this line of work, did something happen in your professional life that led you here? Like, were you once someone that had a lot of pain and then you're like, you know what, now that I know this, I want to teach others? Or how did that get started?
That's a good question. So it actually wasn't my professional life. It was my personal life. So when I was a student, I actually started running. And when I grew up, I was deemed completely non-athletic. So no good at any sports, terrible in phys ed class. I was absolutely the person sitting in my high school phys ed teacher's office crying because my phys ed score was bringing my whole average down.
Oh my gosh. I don't like running the mile or anything too. And I can only imagine how it is in Canada. Do they make you guys run miles there?
They made us do what's called the Canada Fitness Test, and it's a standardized test. Part of it was running, part of it was reaching and stretching for your toes, part of it was, I don't even remember anymore. I just remember being mildly traumatized by it. And I also specifically remember, I think I was in grade 7 when we did that. I tested as the bottom 1% for flexibility in grade 7, which is not something that anybody really likes to have as part of their self-image. But it is actually that drives me to do what I do, because the frank truth is, when you're working with practitioners, especially when it comes to fitness, it's actually better to go to the practitioner who had to work at it, who had to figure it out, who had to break it down in their own body, because I know exactly what that feels like to somebody else, versus going to that naturally thin or naturally built person who, at the end of it, how did they get that body? Genetics, right?
Yeah.
So I have to actually, I kind of refer to myself as being almost body dyslexic, where I look at something and I experience something, and then I have to kind of keep breaking it down and keep working backwards. So by the time I can figure it out in my own body, I can teach it to anybody.
Right. Yeah.
But basically, when I was in school as a student, post high school, we call it university in Canada. I know it's college in the United States.
Yeah.
So I started running, and because I had come from that super non-athletic background, running actually ended up causing injury. It created a problem in my body called runner's knee, which, if I knew then what I know now, I could have fixed that in a week or less, but I didn't. And so I did precisely what I described at the top of this interview, which was, I went to the sports doctor, I went to the massage therapist, I went to every kind of practitioner I could imagine. And there was certainly some short-term relief. I remember leaving a Rolfer's office and I was like, wow, that was really something. But it didn't actually hold. And the reason, again, if I knew then what I know now, is because then I would go out and do it again. So I would continue using my muscles poorly, and then that injury would just come back. And it came back to the point where I basically was just unable to run. So that was the end of that for a bit. So this was in the 1990s. And eventually, because I was open to, I just mentioned that I went to rolfing. That wasn't really, nobody really knew what that was in the 90s. So somebody eventually referred me to a Pilates studio. And that was back in the day when really the only people who did Pilates were dancers. And I walked in and remember vividly kind of seeing people on the reformers just doing all of these movements. And I was like, I don't know what this is, but we'll just give it a go. Yeah. And my body felt incredible. And from that experience, I immediately had the sense that I wanted to teach this work. It took me 10 years to actually certify in that particular discipline. And that certainly wasn't kind of the end of the story, because I took that base work and I added many other pieces to it, and I started working with highly complex people and cases, etc. But that was the foundation of how and where I got started. Mm-hmm. More recently, I actually had an experience in my body where I had a baby, And so running is going to be a theme to this story.
Oh, wow.
After he was born, I really wanted to run a marathon. So I ran the New York City Marathon. And what I did not know at the time was that the hormones from breastfeeding, I did know that they were still in my body, but I didn't realize that that wasn't actually a great thing to do. So my body hadn't quite come back fully into its pre-pregnancy condition. So when you're breastfeeding, you have a child, you feel no pain. Everything is all good.
Right.
So I describe pregnancy kind of like you've got a room full of furniture, then you've got a moving company that takes everything out of the room and then puts it back together according to a picture of what the room used to look like. Everything goes back kind of where it used to be, but there's always a few things that are just angled a little bit off.
Right.
So my left leg ended up in that position, and then I ran on top of it quite a bit. I mean, I ran a marathon, so there was some training and there was et cetera.
Right.
Then when I stopped breastfeeding, I could feel everything really pulling back in and my legs started to hurt. So my solution was to go to hot yoga, which resulted in me getting a chronically dislocated rib. And then I fell and hurt my tailbone. And then I had another medical issue. And long story short, my body just was in pain for multiple years, to the point where it hurt to walk down the street. So it was really interesting because I was already a business owner. I was already a movement specialist. This was already my target market. And then I got to experience for a couple of years what it really felt like to have that chronic pain in my body, where everything I did hurt. Even the techniques, Pilates hurt my body. Yeah, body rolling hurt my body. Everything hurt. And so at that point, I actually added different new techniques. I added a whole set of personal information clearly to what that really was like in my body. And I again had the experience, only this time really as a grown-up, of going to different practitioners and having my hopes come up and then fall again. So I have subsequently layered different pieces onto my business and the way that I approach clients because of that experience, because it really was a very interesting physical body experience to be a practitioner in this discipline saying, I can help you, and then not being able to help myself. And part of it's just like I was too close to myself, but that really informed what I do also.
Wow. No, that's a very powerful story, because that just shows that even you're already working in this space and all of this happened and you're able to come out of it on top and show like, see, it really does work. Because even though I teach this, I'm applying it to my own life and more. And then it really came, wow. And I've never been a runner. I'll tell you that. Like, I've definitely been more of
you're okay.
Yeah. Like when it comes to like sports or anything, I mean, I was always interested in it, but I did more like music related stuff. So anything physical that I did, I mean, I've taken, kickboxing classes. I've done Pilates, yoga. Like there was a time I was doing Pilates a lot, fell in love with it. Seriously.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Cause like for me, like, with, being a mom and like just, business owner and like you have anxiety on top of all of that. For me, my issue is I tense up. So like my muscles always feel like even right now, my back is like, it's a rock right now.
Because you're type A also, right?
Yes. See, that's why I was like, there has to be some connection there. Yeah. So that's why I found that really interesting. But yeah, like that's why for me, and I miss going to any type of gym or fitness class, because it really does help just like loosen everything up. I have seen an acupuncturist and it does help. Have you done cupping before?
I have. Yes.
Yeah, I love cupping. So that really helps for sure, like loosen everything up. But I just know like right now with COVID, like people need to find better ways to work. I mean, yes, it's like considered a luxury to work from home. But to be able to comfortably work from home, I'm sure that's a whole nother thing that people need to find, a happy medium. So we talk about movement and we talk about things that you should do so you can relieve the pain. Yes. What are some best practices for those that are remote working into I guess like, we want to be more mindful of how we move our positioning. What type of like, I guess like desk do you like a desk that you recommend? Office chairs? I'm sure there's like some best products that you'd say like, stay away from these and this is better for you during this time.
Well, I'm going to go one step backwards. A couple of weeks ago, I always talk to my clients about how much we sit, and very few people will actually put their hand up and admit that they sit a lot and say, I'm totally sedentary. Some people will, but very few people actually kind of self-identify with that. And so I did some roughed out math. So this is not scientific whatsoever, but it's just roughed out math. We have 24 hours in a day. We sleep for 8. So if you do that quick math, we have 16 hours left. If we are achieving our magical 10,000 steps, let's be generous and say that takes you 2 hours a day, which it won't take the average person that long. But so that leaves 14 hours a day that we are sitting, right? And so if we're generous, I mean, most of us are spending some time, like you're standing, brushing your teeth, you're standing, cooking meals, you're standing, doing some things that wouldn't be kind of accumulating steps. So let's even add 2 hours to that, but still, then we're sitting for 12 hours a day. So there is no magic chair and no magic desk that is going to make the human body operate in a fully sustainable way for 12 hours a day. It just doesn't exist. However, we want to be in a chair that actually offers some support. So one of the things that I really notice is that often when people sit, they lose the curve in the low back. So we sit without any lumbar support. So actually the office chair that I have is an Aeron office chair. That's a very like 1990s thing, but it's made of the mesh, and it does offer those appropriate supports. The bigger deal with those chairs as well is they're actually also made in 3 sizes. So I'm only 5'4". So when I sit in a standard office chair, it's actually made for 5'7", 5'8", 5'9" man. I'm neither a man nor am I that tall. I have a short torso, and just that lumbar support doesn't work. So I would recommend that you get a chair, especially for female, especially if you're a bit on that more petite size, that is actually meant for your gender and your size, or at least has some sizing capacity. But that's why I actually personally love those Aeron chairs, because they offer all of that support and they have the different sizes.
Wow. See, we're about the same height. So I'm like 5'3"-ish, close to 5'4". Yeah. And it's funny, I never thought about that these chairs, that you should get a chair that's definitely more designed for your body type, because sometimes when you go on like Amazon or Office Depot, you just look for what looks, like the right aesthetic, right?
Right.
I'm guilty of that. I'm like, oh, that looks very like the dark brown leather. Okay, not for me. And then I'll look for something that looks more modern or whatever. Like, I don't even know what kind of a chair this is, but it's definitely not as supportive as yours. I know that.
Right. And we also tend to look at price point. And I mean, those two things are obvious. It's in our home, it's in our environment. We are going to look at aesthetics and price point. But if you really, if you are sitting 8, 10, 12 hours a day in this chair, you can throw a bit of cash at it. Because
right.
Otherwise, you're going to actually be putting money into practitioners to help you get over that back pain.
Right.
And I'm very supportive of practitioners, and I think that that's great. But I think my work model is I actually capture people when they are in pain. But first step, we're not getting you fit when you are in pain. Mm-hmm. We're not getting you anywhere until we get rid of that pain. And so if you can live a life where you actually don't pain, you can prevent it, you're already 5 steps ahead. Because when I get a client in whose shoulder hurts, neck hurts, back hurts, we have to actually walk them back to that place of neutrality. And I mean, I had to do that in my own body. So there wasn't kind of let's work on tone or let's build strength anywhere until we could get rid of that pain. So that's what we really want to do when we're looking at chairs. And another actually really important thing in our home is pillows.
Okay.
So usually chairs and pillows and beds are places to actually invest money that no one wants to, but but we spend more hours of our day in a chair and in the bed than we do anywhere else.
Right. No, that's a great way to look at it. Because a lot of people will, just go to like Walmart, pick up a $2 pillow and call it good. And I'm just like, I don't know if that's the best. Like for me personally, like I get my pillows at Costco, but I feel like I could probably get an even better quality if I really wanted, because especially like when they just, because like if you sleep on an uncomfortable pillow, you're gonna wake up in a lot of pain.
You are going to wake up in pain.
Yeah, and you know what? I just, this is a funny thing I got to mention. So I used to have this mattress. I got rid of it since then. But there was a time where I had developed arthritis and carpal tunnel.
Oh no.
Yeah, and I was like, how in the world did I get this? But I'm thinking, oh, it's because of my computer work, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like in my bed, and I mean, the bed wasn't even that old, but it was a memory foam bed, and it had actually created like an imprint of where I was laying. Like, I swear, like if you looked at it, you see like a slight dip. It's not that noticeable, but it like conformed to my body. So then there was a day that I had, it finally clicked. Like I woke up one day and my arms were swollen, I'm hurting, and I'm like, God, like it just, and I'm taking like all these supplements, like herbal supplements, because I like to do natural as much as possible.
Yeah.
I don't take medication, obviously, but I was like, what in the heck? And then it wasn't until I got a new mattress, my back pain went away. My arthritis symptoms were like nearly gone. Like every now and then it may feel a little bit off, but that's because I know I've been working at my computer for most of the day. But I was like, holy crap, it was the mattress this whole time. I'm like over here like running around thinking I'm doing other things, or I'm like just stuck with this. And that's like another thing I like to talk about, in this podcast, is you don't have to stay stuck with your symptoms.
You do not need to stay stuck with your symptoms.
No.
One thing I have definitely learned, and I don't want to use the word never, so I'm thinking, but basically almost never had a client whose symptomology, like where they felt it, was the beginning, middle, and end of what the problem was. So you just described that perfectly. You were feeling that in your wrist, but it was actually from your shoulder, your back, your neck, everything being kind of off. And it wasn't your computer. It wasn't just a wrist problem.
Right.
That is what I work with all the time. So back pain, yeah, we can treat the back, but it's likely coming from the hip.
Right. See, yep.
It's likely coming from the core.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we do, and I did it too when I was in that position. So even with all my knowledge, when my body was hurting, we go in for symptom management where we feel it. And that's not where the problem is. So our bodies, when we are in the holistic world, we think of that with everything else except our bodies. We think of that with everything else except fitness and body. So we know that the body's connected. We have that knowledge. And like you, I take natural supplements and, all of that stuff, and think about the body as a system.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to actual pain, it's just human nature. We think that if we have a pain in the shoulder, well, the problem is the shoulder.
Right.
Maybe, but probably not.
Right. You got to dig further. And it's truly like a process of elimination. That's what I call it. Like, especially, after all the healing I've gone through, it's like almost like instinctual. Like now I'm just kind of like, oh, I feel this. Okay, let's find the root. I'm always looking for the root now. Like there's no way I'm just like, oh, my back hurts. Oh, it's just my back. Like, no, there's something you're doing, or there's something you got to tweak in your environment. And for me, it was literally getting a new mattress, because literally it was just terrible. I'm like, I don't even know what is going on.
Mattresses, pillows, chairs, things like that absolutely 100% contribute. Definitely.
Yeah. So there's like this whole, I mean, I'm sure you've seen these desks, the desks that the standing desk that can go up and down.
Yes.
Do you recommend those? Because honestly, so I'm shopping for a new office space, or supplies for a new office space, and those are they can be pretty pricey. So it's perfect timing to ask someone, like, to say, are those worth it? Do you think we really need to have that? I mean, it does help you like move around more, but I don't know. Is it worth the investment, you think?
I don't love those, and it's because I would say probably 2 years ago was kind of the peak. I can't pinpoint it exactly, but kind of the peak trend of that, where everybody was kind of getting those. And then I started to get a lot of feedback of, well, my back hurts differently now. My back hurts worse now.
Oh,
and I think two things. One is, again, if the reason that we're getting that is because we have back pain. The back pain doesn't miraculously go away just because you stand up. So those biomechanics, that lack of core strength, the fact that your hip flexors are too tight, the fact that your glutes are not functioning, it's not just going to magically snap back into submission because you got a standing desk. So you still have to do the work to rid yourself of whatever pain. And I know this is, I mean, I used to be an office worker. So the current thing I do is a career change. So I can put myself in the position of being an office worker. So I don't say this as somebody who has had this career forever and is living in this like pink bubble of health. But instead of getting a stand-up desk, what we should be doing is walking to our coworkers' offices instead of sending them an email. We should get up once an hour and just walk around the floor. We should actually literally make sure that we are getting those 10,000 steps. So research shows that the average American gets about 5,000. So we are living fully within that target of sedentary lifestyle. And so the standing desk it's a great idea, but I often think that it's the folks who are already active and healthy and kind of had that sustainable body who are in that direction. But a lot of it, again, we're looking to the tool to solve the problem. The desk isn't going to get us more steps. The desk isn't going to make those hip flexors kind of loosen and function in a consolidated manner with your adductors and with your quads and with your hamstrings. Is it better than sitting in a completely sedentary position for 12 hours? Yeah, sure. But is it worth several $1,000s? I think you're better off to invest in, of course I'm going to say this, but I think you're better off actually to invest in working with a movement specialist to actually get rid of that underlying problem.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because for me, so one thing I vowed to do, especially once my office space is fully up and running, my new one, I'm like, okay, I need to, I'm going to set like little reminders on my phone, like time to move, you know, because I tend to be the type, like when I'm working on something, I get so in the zone, especially if I'm in the zone, I'll be there for like in the same position for a good amount of time. And I even noticed just even when I was driving, I had to be more mindful of this. Like when I'm driving, I shouldn't rest this arm on the middle console and just leave it there. I used to just be like, boom, for like an hour. Or because in the Bay Area, when there's traffic, there's not much traffic now, but when there is.
Right, you're sitting there.
Right. And so those little things, I had to learn, just be like, nope, correct yourself. And so I vowed like, okay, once everything is settled down, part of my movement is like taking my dogs on a walk or like, you know, really trying to like, give your body those breaks because you don't even realize how bad it is for you. Like
you don't. And I think we underestimate actually how much the human body actually will move towards being sedentary. And that's because that actually is a bit of a survival technique from back in the day. Mm-hmm. So back in the day, when we spent most of our caloric output looking for food, we had to constantly be shifting positions. We had to constantly be on the move. So that urge to sit actually helped us generate body reserve. Well, in the modern world, it's actually the dead opposite. You know, the dishwasher does the dishes for us. The washing machine does the laundry for us. Food is the most readily available thing ever. So we spend 0 calories actually acquiring it. I mean, at this point, especially during COVID, like it literally comes to your door. You don't even have to see a delivery person.
Right. DoorDash, Uber Eats. I'm sure you guys have that over there too.
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah. Yeah. So all of it. I mean, you literally are at the place where you can sit down, type out your order, and you have to walk 12 steps to the door, and that's it, right? So we still have that human biological urge to survive through sitting, but it now is actually come full circle where that is literally, I mean, a few years ago there was that sitting is the new smoking campaign that came out, but it literally is actually killing us. So we have to actually be mindful about getting up and about changing those patterns, like you said, where you know we just get into sitting in the car.
Oh yeah, or you're hunching. Oh my God, I'm so guilty of doing these things. Not all the time, but it happens. Like because you just can't. That's like your just comfort zone. And as I was talking to you, I was like even like thinking my back. Like I need to sit straight. I was like,
and I spend a lot of time with clients actually talking to them. It's not a conversation. It's actually a physical movement we actually go through sitting and walking, and we open up compressed joints, and then they can feel what it feels like to sit properly and to walk properly. And once you have that re-imprinted in your mind,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like going back to childhood, where your body was really free and open, and you just moved without pain, without having to kind of program your body. And we shouldn't have to have little reminders all over the place. Once your body re-experiences what it's like to be not in that compressed state and be not in that hunched state, it's going to want to do that, because it's actually kind of painful to sit like that, and your back hurts.
Right.
So then the body, but we have to get that blueprint back into the body quite typically, because we don't even have that body awareness. That's the other human development skill that comes back to kind of bite us in the butt, is we can ignore our body. And again, that was a survival strategy, because if every time you felt like you had to go to the bathroom or you had to eat, that's the only thing you could think about, you would have gotten eaten alive, literally, back in the day. So we have a survival mechanism that we can override our body signals. And a lot of us have just literally lost that conscious awareness of what it is to feel our body.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. No, I think that, it's so important to be more in tune and to be like, hey, like if you're sitting in a bad position, you should be able to catch that.
Yes.
There was someone I knew back in the day, whenever I would even slightly hunch, he would like push my back to be like, stand up straight. And I'm like, oh God, dang it. Like, it just like, cause you just don't realize. And it's funny, cause I saw these products, I think it was on Amazon, I'm sure it was Amazon, but it's like, you put this thing around your waist and it's supposed to like correct how your posture, like it's supposed to like push onto your back and just like make you stay straight regardless. And I don't know if that's like a good or bad thing, because I'm like, it may help you for short term, but you can't like wear that every day.
You can't wear that every day. And at the end of it, why is that happening? So again, I'm big on underlying causes. Mm-hmm. So, if you're hungry, you can smoke a cigarette or drink a cup of coffee, and that'll blunt the hunger, but that's not actually the problem. You know what I mean? So I think if you're hunched over, likely you've got compression at your hips, and likely your core muscles, your deep core stabilizers, aren't functioning to their optimum best. And so yes, we can kind of put a little cape on that pokes us in the back to remind us, but that's the body equivalent of drinking a cup of coffee or having a cigarette when you're hungry. It might create some temporary override of your body's signals, but it's not going to actually like probably be ideal long term.
Right. Oh my gosh. No, I feel like I've learned so much from you and like all your recommendations. And I know, especially right now, with everyone being the most sedentary we probably have ever been as a whole world, not even country, world, like, oh my gosh, they need you. They need you.
It's true. It's true. I very much appreciate that you have this podcast to kind of talk about holistic solutions, because I think it's so important to have ideas. And as you mentioned when we were off camera, there are so many ideas and so many techniques and so many solutions that do exist on this planet. So much as we have certain things that are happening in higher proclivity than maybe they ever have, being sedentary, obesity, we also have more solutions available for all of these things. So thank you for what you do.
No, oh my gosh. No, thank you so much. Like, it's because of experts like you, it gives me things to share. So I am definitely so thankful for you and all of your wisdom. So other than our podcast insiders group, where can our listeners find you online to connect with you?
My business name is called My Body Couture. It's 3 words, My, M-Y. Second word is body, B-O-D-Y. Third word is couture, C-O-U-T-U-R-E. So I am found at My Body Couture on Facebook. I'm quite active on Facebook with many articles and blogs and kind of the sorts of ideas that we talked about today. I'm also on Instagram and Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn as well, and happy to connect with anybody there under my personal name, which is Janis Isaman. My first name is Janis, spelled like Janis Joplin, and my last name is Isaman. It's pronounced Isaman, but if you cut it apart, it's is a man.
Yeah, no, thank you for clarifying that, because I was like, I don't want to pronounce that incorrectly.
No.
I don't want to butcher anyone's name. So
No.
no, but that is so awesome. Yes, I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of listeners that want to hear what you have to say and learn from you. And all of her links will be in the description, show notes. And as usual, we are so thankful to have you listening and coming on to the episode today. So thank you so much, Janis, and we'll catch all of you guys next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.